Hello everyone, I hope you guys are all well. So welcome to day 3 of the 12 days of Ayurveda. Today's gift of Ayurveda is all about the age-old science of yoga, but from a new angle, perhaps an angle that you may not be aware of or may be new to you with regards to why yoga is such a profoundly health-promoting science. And Ayurveda and yoga are called sister sciences. They go together hand in hand, and the classical saying is that you can't practice one without the other. If you practice Ayurveda, you need to integrate yoga and vice versa. And I think most health conscious people are aware of the fact that yoga is very, very health promoting. The common benefits of increased flexibility, increased strength, increased balance, feeling calmer and happier, those kinds of things. And I'd probably go as far as to say that once you start practicing yoga regularly, it can be really life transforming. That's my experience of it anyway, in terms of the broad impacts it has upon the way we live our life, and the impacts it has upon that in terms of our physical health, our mental health, etc., etc. But tonight I just want to talk about it from perhaps a slightly different angle, and rather than talking about it from the general view of yoga, I want to approach it from an angle of something called genetic expression and also biochemistry, which is a lot more exciting than it sounds. And this is, I guess, the new frontier of yoga. There's been clinical research done into yoga going back 60 or 70 years now. But technology has finally caught up with yoga, and there's the new medical technology, new ways of measuring and quantifying the body have allowed people and scientists and researchers to actually really quantify and prove what yoga does to the body. And I want to go through 3 things quickly tonight. The first one is something called genetic expression. So genetic expression is the process by which lifestyle practices, herbal medicines, whatever it may be, change the way the genes in our body express themselves. So more specifically, the way self-care practices turn on health-promoting genes and turn off disease-promoting genes. So genetic expression is the new frontier. It's phenomenally effective that we can do things that turn on good genes and turn off bad genes. And there's finally some really robust research that's come out of Harvard Medical School, probably the epicenter of medical research in the whole world, looking at the genetic effects of yoga on the human body. And this is an ongoing research study, but there's a couple of areas that are really interesting this early. And the first and the area that it kind of has flagged up most as being most important is that yoga has now been clinically proven to turn on genes that increase our energy production, so that increase our body's production of energy, which is probably why people who practice yoga will often say after a couple of months they feel more vital, they feel more energized, they've got more oomph, they've got more radiance. And that's now being proved genetically, that yoga, that practice, it turns on the genes in the body that helps the body produce physical energy and vitality. The other thing that yoga does is that it turns off the genes that enhance blood sugar levels, and it turns on the genes that lower blood sugar levels. And given how many diseases have their foundation in high blood sugar, not just diabetes, but most metabolic disorders, cancer to a degree. So, the fact that a regular yoga practice can lower our blood sugar at the genetic level is very, very powerful. And perhaps the most broad benefit is that it's now proven that yoga protects our body at the genetic level from the damaging effects of stress. And that's a really key one, because if we think about stress, the current evidence suggests that about 70 to 80% of chronic illnesses have their foundation in a chronic stress response. And what it's saying is that yoga has the capacity to protect ourselves from the stresses and strains of daily life, and through doing so reduce the risk factors for so many chronic illnesses. So the fact that yoga practice has the ability to turn on and turn off these genes is just mind-blowingly powerful, mind-blowingly important. And I think it's a tip of the iceberg. I think as more research is done, we're going to see more and more impacts around the ability of yoga to change our body at the genetic level. So that's the first area, genetic expression. The second area, which is just as if not more mind-blowing, is something called telomeres. So telomeres are the caps on the end of our chromosomes, and they are a biological marker of aging. So as our telomeres shorten, that's what aging is. And the quicker they shorten, the faster we age. The slower they shorten, the slower we age. And there's research now to show that we can actually regrow telomeres. We can lengthen our telomeres, which is kind of the same way as saying that we can genetically slow down, stop, and even reverse physiological aging. And guess what? Again, yoga, there's been really powerful research from Harvard Medical School. So very, very powerful, well-conducted research that has now proven that regular yoga practice can both slow down telomere reduction and actually regenerate our telomeres in our cells. So what it's saying is that the regular yoga practice at the genetic level slows down the physiological aging of our body. And it's just so interesting that this cutting edge science is supporting something that Ayurveda and yoga has been saying for thousands of years. If you look at the yogis, of India, they have phenomenal longevity. The stories of these yogis getting up to 120, 130 years of age in good, healthy vitality. And could it be that their excellent diet, their daily devotion to yoga practice, the Ayurvedic practices they're using, it had such a profound impact upon their telomeres that it allowed them to reach this phenomenal age. And I'm convinced that that's the case. We now have this evidence, this science to show that yoga, it slows down the genetic aging of the body. So that's number two. The third thing is about the effects, the biochemical effects of yoga on something called GABA, G-A-B-A. And GABA is a really important neurotransmitter in the brain. That it's got loads of functions, but it's integral and essential in the control and regulation of our mood. So in simple terms, as our levels of GABA drop, anxiety increases, stress increases, our quality of sleep decreases, our mood decreases. So low GABA is synonymous with poorer mental and emotional health, but high GABA is the opposite. High GABA is associated with less anxiety, less stress, more feel-good emotions, more emotional energy, being in a happier mood, more peace, more contentment, and also better sleep, which is fundamentally important. And there's been a great study looking at, does yoga affect neurotransmitters? Does yoga affect the biochemistry of the brain? And it does so in profound ways on so many brain chemicals and neurotransmitters and hormones. But the research around GABA is particularly interesting, because what the research shows is that over a very short period of time, yoga has the ability to radically transform the GABA profile in our brain. So over 6 weeks, there was a study done, again in Harvard, looking at people who'd never practiced yoga before in their life. And they looked at their GABA levels, and they looked at their levels of stress, their levels of anxiety, their quality of their sleep, the amount of time they spent in what was labeled as feel-good emotions, feeling in a good mood, happy, jubilant, bubbly, those kinds of things. They then practiced yoga 3 times a week for 6 weeks, which is not a lot, that's not too much effort really. Over 6 weeks, 1.5 months, a blink of an eye, and they reassessed them. At the end of 6 weeks, their GABA profile was fundamentally different. It was significantly higher than what it was, and that increase was associated with clinically lower levels of anxiety, less stress, more positivity, less depression, better sleep, more energy. And it was linked to 4 key emotions in day-to-day life: being happier, being calmer, being more peaceful and contented, and being what was labeled as being more of a blissful state. And the fact that you can we can walk around in day-to-day life feeling happier, more peaceful, more contented, and more blissful after 6 weeks of yoga practice. And the fact that we can quantify why that's the case through changes in brain chemistry is mind-blowing. So imagine what happens after the first year of practice, after the first 5 years of practice, after the 10 years of practice. We're walking around in biochemically and genetically primed bodies to support health and vitality and energy and slow aging and optimal genetic profiles and this, that, and the other. And that's just 3 isolated benefits. So I know it's probably preaching to the converted, because I'm sure everyone listening is aware of the benefits of yoga, but they were 3 areas that are new, that are cutting edge, and that support and prove at the genetic and biochemical level why yoga has such a profound impact upon our physical health and our mental and emotional health. Okay, so I guess the big takeaway is that if you're practicing yoga regularly, then take knowledge from the fact that that's having a huge impact upon your well-being. And if you're not practicing yoga, then please start, because there's so many resources now. It's so easy to do online. Start practicing yoga. Get these benefits. Okay, so I hope that's been interesting. Tomorrow, wave to the little one in the background. Yeah, he's just come to get some food. Holly's still away in Australia, so flying solo with the 3 kids. Thanks for signing in tonight. I hope you guys are all well. Just a quick question. Yeah, would the same be for Tai Chi? Yeah, I haven't got into it in the same level of that I have for yoga, but I've seen very clear research that Tai Chi has impacts upon genetic expression, upon immune variables, upon certain hormones. So I think very much so. Okay, Tracy. I hope that's been interesting. Anyone that you know who's into yoga, share this with them, because it's always good to validate self-care practices. But other than that, I hope you're all well and have a lovely evening. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for episode 4.